All right, thank you. Thanks everybody for being here, by the way. If you haven't heard of me, of course, he already gave me a great introduction, thank you. I'm Elian, I'm the lead developer relations at React Bricks. I'm also a CTO at a group of companies, which is called Vilpo. It's a Belgian company where I do the CTO stuff. Solve problems, I guess. So I'm also an Astro maintainer, which is why, of course, I'm going to talk about Astro today. I used to work in the core team for about a year-ish. But now I'm just a maintainer because I moved on to other opportunities and other responsibilities because I love my job as a CTO and lead developer relations. I'm, of course, just like Johan said, I'm a part of the BGS team where I organize conferences mainly in the React world. We do have more general JavaScript conferences as well, where I do React Paris, React Brussels, and React Africa. Last year we did it in Morocco. It was great, in Casablanca. This year, probably we'll do it in Egypt, in Cairo. So if you can, please be there because it will be awesome. I hope we can do it outside, right in front of the pyramids, but I don't know if my budget will allow that. We'll see about that. I'm from Belgium, from a small town. Well, actually, it's the second largest city, but I'm from Ghent. So if you ever are in Belgium, please give me a heads up and we'll go for a drink, real Belgian beers, which is way better than everything else, of course. I organize meetups there and events there under the name Des.Ghent, which is basically welcoming all developers in Ghent. If you want to follow me online, you can with @ElianCodes. It's on all platforms, LinkedIn. The only thing I don't have is Facebook. Apparently that's a thing here. It doesn't exist in Europe, so I don't have it. But yeah, if you really want me there, come talk to me and then I make a page so you can follow me. Okay, but of course you're not here just for me. We're here for getting some knowledge. So let's talk about that. But first of all, I want to say a big thank you to Forkit. And the reason why is having me here as a European, it's of course very costly and it's hard budget-wise. I know how hard it is to do conferences in Africa. I've done it before last year. And I care a lot about it. Because I know how hard it can be for you guys to get visas and it can take a long time to actually go to Europe. So if I ever get the chance, I'm always available to go to different countries and talk to the local people because that's what we need. We need communities everywhere. So big thank you to Forkit for organizing so much stuff. So please give them a big applause. So thank you, Forkit. Also, I know this is very corny, but I can only speak and travel this much because of one reason. This is just my flight log of last year. As you can see, I did a lot of travel. And that's because I have a girlfriend at home who takes care of me and my cats when I'm not there. So please, I want to take a little video of y'all saying, Moya, thank you. Can we do that? Okay, I will count down. Y'all ready? 3, 2, 1. Moya, thank you. And then I have this beautiful picture of her and a cat. Thank you. All right, I'll send her that. Thank you. All right, now let's get into the real stuff. Astro. Who has heard or used Astro? The Forkit website, exactly. Yeah, it's built with Astro, true. That's amazing. Of course, if you have ever seen one of my talks, this is the part that I typically always do. I'm trying to get up my keynote here on my phone as well, if it works. It doesn't seem to work. Let me quickly, yes, there we go. Now I can use my phone as a remote, it's way easier. All right, when I talk about Astro, I typically talk about the ideal content-driven websites, right? Because content is super important. Think of Astro as a framework like Next or Nuxt, as you're used to, probably by now. A meta framework, as you will, but with some cool twists, features, and amazing developer experience. For instance, this is what Astro, like the syntax, looks like. Basically, at the top, the front matter part, between those brackets there, those braces, it's called the front matter. That's where you can just type normal JavaScript or TypeScript, which is really cool. And then at the bottom, it's basically a JSX-like language, so something that feels very familiar to React, but it's not entirely React, it's not entirely JSX, because as you can see, we just use class and not class name, because we actually care about the web. But the thing is, that one of the bigger differences is that by default, we don't ship any JavaScript. Why is that by default? Well, let's get a little bit deeper into that. So imagine we have this normal, I don't know, React page, view page, whatever. Typically in SPAs or in MPAs even by now, think Next, Nuxt and others, all of those different components here require JavaScript to render. Why? It doesn't make sense, because if you look at the bottom here, it's just 3 footer links. Why do I need to ship JavaScript to your browser so you can read those links? It's in the HTML spec, it's called an A tag. We have it already. So why are we doing that? Well, Astro, by default, will compile all of that down to native HTML and CSS. No JavaScript whatsoever. So by default, even though you write them in JSX-like languages, but by default, that will give you, of course, 100 everywhere across Lighthouse course, because there is no JavaScript. That makes sense. So it's a way, the most fast way you can do it. If you care a little bit about SEO and you care a little bit about accessibility, you'll get there in an instant. So that's why I say that it's ideal for content-driven websites, because of course, content or SEO is HTML in its core, which makes sense. But of course, HTML and CSS, it's cool, but it cannot do everything. Like, what if I have a mobile button? I need to find my website on my mobile. I want to click a button. I need it to work. So that's why we have client directives. And client directives basically decide how and when a component should become interactive and ship JavaScript to the browser. We have, for instance, a couple of those. I just listed 4. We have more, but they're not that important. So client load, for instance, just tells the browser, hey, load JavaScript as soon as you see this component. Client idle does the same thing, but it will wait for the main thread of the browser to be free. So if you have a heavier component, or maybe it's a little bit more down the page, you can say, hey, this component is not priority. So ship only JavaScript whenever the main thread is free. Client media is a really cool one, because that example that I gave you, I did it with purpose. For instance, if I build a website and I need that mobile menu to work, you click on the button and it's there, right? That makes sense. But actually, if I have a big screen and I don't see that component, why should I ship JavaScript to power that component? It's not there in the first place. So that's why we have client media that will actually generate a CSS query, and you can tell it, hey, only ship JavaScript to mobile phones, which is way more performant, of course. And we also have client only, which basically means, hey, Astro, I know what I'm doing, skip out the compiler completely, ship that JavaScript, which might be useful in case of, I don't know, React 3 Fiber, for instance, something like that. Okay, cool. So with the client directives that we just spoke about, we can transform this MPA, multi-page application, into an SPA-like feeling application, and we can only ship JavaScript to those components. So that image slider, the header with the links, whatever, because we want that mobile button there, or maybe we want to load some ads on the side, we can do that all with island architecture, because those, because those are just small contained islands of JavaScript and interactive islands. Cool. The cool thing about Astro is also that it's framework agnostic. So you build your base layer in Astro, and then you can just place React on top, Alpine maybe you want Vue. You can choose, which makes it amazing to ship websites in. It's really easy. But of course, a lot of you have heard and know about Astro. So who has heard or learned something new in just this small piece? Probably nobody, exactly. Good, good. Because there is also a lot of new things happening in the Astro space. Since a while, we have something called server islands. And server islands is quite new, and basically it's a normal server-side rendered island or Astro component that is instructed to delay its rendering until the contents are available. So your page will be rendered immediately, but it will wait with loading the content until whatever you're requesting on the server is ready. And actually, it's quite easy to work with. We just say, hey, server defer, which basically means render this on the server, and let's wait for a couple moments. So in this case, I'm trying to fetch an avatar, which is coming from an API endpoint, maybe GitHub, whatever. So there is a request going. A request can take time, especially on slower internet speeds. That makes sense. So what you can do is just tell it, hey, load this fallback while you're requesting the resources on the server. Whenever it's ready, send back the HTML, and we'll drop in and replace it, just like HTMX does, for instance. How does that look in practice? Well, like this. You've probably seen it somewhere on like booking websites, for instance. Well, here at the bottom, it will replay in a second. That's all server islands. Basically, your whole page is already there. You have no content layout shifts because that's the most annoying thing. You know, especially newspapers are very good at this. You start reading an article, you're halfway down the page and suddenly everything shifts again because it started to load in, I don't know, an ad or something. It's super annoying. And this basically makes sure that there is no content layout shift, but you're still requesting slow things on the server. For instance, here you're requesting a database, you're looking at, hey, what bookings are available, how many bookings are available. It can take some time. So yeah, that's cool. And also, each and every server island, you can cache on the client. You can say, hey, this one should be cached for 4 hours, this one should be cached for a minute, whatever. You can choose. We now have the content layer API as well. And the new content layer API basically did what Gatsby did, but better. Because Gatsby did it with GraphQL, it was kind of annoying to work with. And in Astro, we had something called content collection. I don't know if you ever worked with it. It was basically a way of writing your pages in Markdown. And it worked very well, but it was quite limiting as well because it only worked with Markdown. Well, now with the content layer API, you can basically do whatever you want. For instance, here I have a collection of countries that's coming from an API, built locally, and in my page, I can query them super fast because it's all in my memory. So that's an easy example, but we have more, of course. For instance, food. In this case, I'm loading Cloudinary. I used to work with them on this. It's great. Basically, what you do is, hey, I have content, and in this case, the content is images. Take them from /sample/food, only take the first 4, and now you can have a collection of items, and it's super easy to work with and native in Astro. So you don't have to fetch the CLI, you don't have to write the JavaScript, it's all already there in the content collections. And then you can just use them on the page. And like, as you can see at the top there, get collection, whichever is your collection. In this case, that's the blog food, the food example, sorry. And then you can just loop over them. So really easy to work with. But of course, Astro is open source. And it's also open source first. So Astro will never publish something that's only for them. We want everybody to share a piece of the pie. In this case, for instance, we have, I think this is the Notion loader. So if you ever work with Notion, you can use Notion as a CMS because basically it outputs Markdown or it outputs HTML. You can basically choose. And the REST API is very annoying to work with. So what you can do is say, hey, I'm going to use the Notion API. I'm going to load this database from Notion. And now you suddenly have it in Astro as a native Astro content, which is awesome. I can do the same thing with, for instance, RSS. Hey, I want to have an RSS reader on my website. Bam, 5 lines of code and you have it. You want to load some articles from a CMS like Strapi? Well, there you have it. You can just write your blog in the CMS and then get the content out, use it in Astro, which will be way faster, of course, for publishing everything. Like this is a Strapi example. All the content type article, give them to me, put them in a collection, and we can render them out. Cool. And that's then how you put it on the page. You can have loaders for everything. So Notion loader, you can have the country loader there, and there at the top, that's the old content collection loader with Markdown. It still works, it's great, it's super fast. And then we invented something called Astro Actions. It was basically a reaction of Next.js server actions and form actions in React. It's the same thing. What's great about it is that it's so easy. It's basically one big JSON object. So you define all your loaders, and you can basically trim down on all your publicly exposed API endpoints, because this is an internal API. What you can do is, for instance, validate form data, input forms. That's the first thing that I do with it. So for instance, here, validating form data, you just set up, hey, this action is called a newsletter. So you can already imagine what I'm going to do. I'm going to take an email and register it on my website. How can I do that? Well, in my form there at the top, I just say, hey, name email, you accept the terms, whatever, and then my action, it will take in a form. So easy. And then I can input validate that on my server, so it's validated on both sides. And I can just write a Zod object. You probably all know Zod. It's just basic validation of objects and types. And then we just put it in, and then the handler is where you will actually do something with that data. In this case, it's probably just writing it to a database or something. Now, how do we actually submit that data? Well, since it's Astro, it's totally doable with just vanilla JavaScript. You just import the action, you add the form with the query selector or with like document.getElementById, whatever you prefer. And then you just do, hey, if we're submitting this, get the form data out of the form, input it into our action, and it's done. So it's quite easy to work with. And then, yeah, in this case, if we have an error, we can show that error, or we can just navigate to whatever page we want to. So quite an easy API to work with. Of course, AstroDB, I already was talking about a little bit of database stuff. Well, now we have an Astro first-party database API, which is great. It works with libSQL. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's basically SQLite. It's a flavor of SQLite, and it's super fast, and it's powered by Drizzle as well under the hood. So in Astro, if you want to use a database, you can just define like you would do in Laravel or I don't know, whatever else there is out there, like Prisma as well. You just define your content schema. Well, not your content schema, but your database schema. In JavaScript, in TypeScript basically, just give it the input, and then on a page you can just do, hey, const comments, await the database, select everything from the comments table, inner join the authors, and then I can display the author of the comment and all the comments on my page with a simple map, which is great. Of course, that's not everything. Now, Astro is amazing, right? Yes. Yeah, not really. Astro is amazing, right? Yeah. Ah, now we're there. Perfect. But learning is too, and at least it should be. So I'm hoping that I am doing like a little bit of a great job. Am I doing well? Okay, good. Kinda. Okay, but let's get a little bit more personal. I already explained like my love for community and connecting and learning, whatever, in the beginning. But also I got into open source, and thus Astro, because I wanted to have fun. And I was actually talking yesterday with Usam about this. Where is Usam? Usam, where are you? Oh, there you are. Hey. I was talking with him about this yesterday, that especially in hard times or harsh times like these, people sometimes get into tech because of the money. And the money is great and it pays well, everything, that's understandable. But please do it because it makes you happy. Because it's very important. Like, you need to love this and you need to learn this. And when I do this, it's an exercise for myself as well. I start building stupid projects and stupid solutions, or great ideas, it depends. For instance, this is one of my talks. I've given it at, I think in Casablanca at ForKit as well. It's basically building music with HTML and MIDI and a little bit of JavaScript. And it's really cool. I can control full websites with just JavaScript and MIDI, so with physical keyboards. It's really cool and it's really fun. For instance, one that I also built is this. It's a meeting excuse generator. So I often hate doing meetings, so I try to get under them whenever I can. Well, I actually applied a full thing where I can just generate an excuse, so I don't have to do the meeting anymore. Well, why was I building this? Well, I needed, for one of my clients, wanted a website with subscriptions, with ChatGPT APIs, and he wanted it built in Laravel. I never heard of those three. Well, I did, of course, but never worked with them. So then I started building that stuff. And that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about. Like, if you do something cool, like this in itself is something worth talking about. So please, you guys as well. I'm sure that some of you have built amazing things, if not all of you. So please, give talks about it. Like, the ForKit community, they need talks every time. So please apply for talks. You can do amazing things. Talk to us as well. Come to speak to me. Come to speak to other speakers that are here today. I'm sure everybody would love to talk to you and get you that first talk. Because speaking about stuff is really awesome. Connecting with people is very important. Now, you have gained all this knowledge. Huh? We have learned about Laravel. We have learned about Astro. We know a lot of stuff. And then, of course, the question. Can you fix my printer? I fucking die inside. Like, people ask me all the time. It's so annoying. No, one, I can't. I have no idea how a printer works. Two, just buy a new one because it's probably cheaper. No, but seriously, what I want to point on is, hey, I need a website. You know, like literally, my best friend's mom, her aunt, knows somebody that needs a website. And then they come to me and they say, hey, you know all these technologies, you know websites. And I'm like, yeah, I know a lot of stuff. I know Astro, I know databases. I can build amazing web applications. And then they ask her, oh yeah, can you do it in WordPress? Which one? Yes, I can. Two, no, I fucking won't. It's horrible to work with, and really, WordPress, get on, man. Like, don't use it anymore. We have so much better solutions. And that's why I'm here also to show a little bit about React Bricks. Because React Bricks, of course, I work for React Bricks. I'm paid to talk about React Bricks as well. But actually, we have built it on Astro now. And it's fucking amazing. Like, I really love it. So now if somebody wants to build a website and they ask me, hey, can you build me a website that's fast that's accessible, super custom, and I want to edit it. Like, it's always one of the three you're giving up when you're using WordPress. So I'm going to quickly show you like a little bit. You can probably not see my screen. I'm going to switch mics as well. So you want, just so you're ready. All right. Can you still hear me? Yes? Okay, perfect, perfect. I'll start sharing my screen here. Mirror. Optimize for. That looks better. Okay, great. Quickly going to connect myself to my phone hotspot and open up some code, because that's always the first thing when you're showing off products you've built and you find awesome, and then you look at the code and it's a mess. In this case, it's not going to be the case, at least I hope. So I'm just going to start my dev server here, which is local. And what I did is I built an amazing website, which is just using Astro, and it say, hey, great developer experience, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is the React marketing, the React Bricks marketing page, whatever. And it's great. But the thing I always find is, like, what if I need to edit it? Like, either I use a CMS, which 90% of the time is basically filling in forms. I hate forms, and if you ever worked with whatever CMS or whatever website, you know that forms is always the worst. Doesn't matter how easy they are. But we added actually something really cool here. This is a page that will just log me in, and this is what React Bricks looks like. I'm going to show you the magic in 1 second, because this is all easy. I can just say, hey, let's say forkit, Tunis. I can save this just like you normally would, and then if I refresh my page, it should be on the page. Hey, that works. Great, that's a CMS. Wow. One thing to note, it's cool that I can actually visually do this. 2, it's not Wix, because you can do this with Wix. Meh, it doesn't really work, because you lose actually all the developer experience. What we do with React Bricks is actually, this is all React code. So this is basically my Astro page that I'm rendering everything in. So what if I want to actually build a custom component? For instance, I don't know why they would ever ask, but I want a counter. How would I build a counter? Well, I can just build a page here. So let me go into React Bricks, Elian Codes UI. I actually should have done this in advance maybe, because that should have been a little bit easier. Let me add a brick here. That's just a shortcut, never mind that. And I'm going to say, you know what, let's keep that. And below here, I'm going to build a normal counter in React. Like we've all seen that, counter. I'm going to make that a state in a second with a div, and then probably in the div we have a button to increment, and a button to decrement, and those are going to increment and decrement the state. So const counter react.useState, that's perfect. We can do it like that, but I'm going to do it inline. So do on click, increment, let's make that a function that's going to set counter, and that equals, this is actually the worst code ever, but it's going to work. That's the most important thing in this case. On click, like that, set a counter to the counter -1. Perfect. Okay, so this should work. It's going to look very ugly, but it's going to work. That's the only thing I need for now. We can clean it up after. That's cool. And now in my index, I can say, hey, I have some custom bricks here. A brick is basically the name for a component in React Bricks. It's not that important. But I can say counter, which I'm going to import, save. And now if I go to my localhost or my React Bricks configuration, I can say, hey, I have a counter component here, and I want that to be in there. Perfect. And now I have exactly that component. So now if we go to our real page that we just built, it's already there. So you can build components in React or in whatever, well, in this case, it's React because React Bricks. And you can actually display them on the page, or you can leave it up to your designer or marketeer to actually define what content is in there. For instance, if I want to clean up that counter a little, I can just do a class here. Now we have to use class name, sadly enough. I'll do it like flags. I'll flag the column, justify center, justify whatever. Same here. So flags. Let's do a gap of 2. Now it should already look a little bit better. Let's make the counter a little bit bigger. So text XL. Whoops. Let's do maybe 3XL so it's actually really visible. Good. And then those counters, of course, let's give them like a PY2, PX4, maybe the background a little bit purplish. I love purple. Let's do purple. So pink. Let's do 400. And text white, whatever. Very easy. Let me copy and quickly paste that over. This is not the way you should do it, but it will work. Cool. But now on our page, this actually is not working. Anybody, do you know why? It's very simple. It's because this is Astro under the hood. This will not work because it's not a client component. So what I actually can do, me as a developer, I can define what should be functional or what should ship JavaScript. And this is a layer of compatibility that you typically don't have in a typical CMS. What I can do is just say Astro interactivity, and just like we said before, idle, load, visible. Let's go with load. And now if I reload my page, I can actually click my state and it will work. So your designer or your marketeers can just basically say, hey, I want this, for instance, to be, hey, the count is ... and maybe I want to actually have something else changed, or maybe I want to remove a plan, like for instance like this. I can remove the feature completely, like that, save it, and now it's full in our browser. We actually wrote the components ourselves in React. We shipped it in seconds, and our marketeers are happy, our developers are happy, and I guess the client is happy because it's actually quite fast. So yeah, I would say no more WordPress. Use something that actually works like React Bricks, where your clients and everybody else will be happy too. I guess that's most of the things I have to say. So yeah, thank you everybody for listening to me. If you want to stay updated, oh, you can already applaud, I can't wait. Great, so if you want to stay updated on Astro, you can do that on astro.build. We have a Discord server which is very active, so if you have any questions about Astro, you can always go there, or you just ask me wherever you can find me online. I will typically respond in like 1 or 2 days at least. So yeah, thank you everybody.
Thank you. We have time for one question, if there is one question.
Yeah.
Thank you for your talk.
Of course.
Two small questions. Okay. So, is HTTP just like a wrapper for Drizzle?
What is?
HTTP just a wrapper for Drizzle or?
For what?
Drizzle.
For Drizzle, yeah, AstroDB is not just a wrapper, but it uses it under the hood. Like just for the query language, yes. But it actually also builds the database. So you can have a completely database. I can quickly show that off. You can still see my screen, right? Yeah, perfect. So AstroDB, I have a quick project here. I'll open, like, it's my own website, so nothing special. It's not just a wrapper, because actually you cannot see it here, because that's great. But if I start my website, I can actually connect to my database. So I'll open my remote server here. It actually has a config and everything. That is what you're used to with Drizzle as well. It has seeders, which you typically don't do like that in Drizzle. But how you work with it is also not Drizzle. It's libSQL under the hood, which is a different kind of layer. Yeah, we control everything from the backend to the front end, basically.
Okay, so if I connect libSQL with Drizzle, do I get AstroDB?
No, because AstroDB will also work locally. If I build a new project and I start with AstroDB, it will actually make a new complete clone of a local file, and you can work remotely.
Okay, so there is many advantages for it to use AstroDB directly with that.
Yeah.
So one of the questions is, what are the advantages of using React Bricks instead of just connecting to CMS like tracking?
Well, that depends, of course, on your preferences on CMSs. And the client needs, of course. Well, in my case, I found out React Bricks was so great because I used React Bricks before I went and worked for the company. I actually got to meet them at React Paris last year. The reason I like it so much is because you have full control over completely how a brick, in this case, well, a component should interact. You can have fine-grained reactivity, you can have fine-grained like permissions. For instance, you can say, hey, this component should not go above that component. But also, I don't think I have my React Bricks project open. No, I don't. Sadly. Well, Well, you can say you see the pluses there. Yeah, I was about to say it's going to disappear. Basically, what you can do is say, hey, this component should not go before that component, and this is a header component, that's a footer component. So those will stay exactly the same. But in your code, you can also define how a brick should be. And like the visual editing for me is also like one of the main selling points. Like I can deliver my piece to a client, and he can say, hey, you can edit all the content, but not the colors, for instance. Or you can say, hey, you can edit anything but the content. So yeah, it's super fine-grained.
Does it add a lot of performance overhead?
Well, the performance is basically Astro. So that's why it's so fast and why it's super good.
It's almost the same.
Yeah, it's fast, super fast.
Thank you again. Thank you very much.
Yes, no worries.
Yeah.